Everyone, you're stuck with me today. Madame Fry asked if I would chair today's committee, so here we are. I call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 31 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage. I'd like to acknowledge this meeting is taking place on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. Conformément à l'ordre de renvoi.
Pursuant to the order of reference of Thursday, May 12, 2022, the committee is meeting on the study of Bill C-11, an act to amend the Broadcasting Act and make related and consequential amendments to other acts. Today's meeting is taking place in hybrid format, pursuant to the House Order of November 25th, 2021.
We've been doing this long enough. I don't think I need to go over the rules for the hybrid format. In recognition of the Minister's time, we do have a 4:30 hard stop with the Minister today, so I will go straight to the Minister and welcome the Honourable Pablo Rodriguez, Minister of Canadian Heritage. And Mr. Minister, you have the floor.
Great. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good day, everyone, colleagues, friends. Mr. Chair, committee members, I would like to begin by thanking you for your work. I know you have spent over 20 hours on this. I want to thank you. I want to thank the witnesses. The bill being studied is extremely important, and we've seen it and we've felt how important it is during the sometimes more heated debates at the committee, and that is very normal.
We now live in a digital world, and therefore we need policies and legislation that are built for that digital world. And honestly, I think that Bill C-11 is the way to do it.
Now, what will C-11 change in concrete terms? First, it will support our artists and our creators. It will promote the creation of good jobs in the cultural sector. It will also make Canadian content more accessible and make it easier to find homegrown music and stories. And finally, online streaming platforms will have to contribute to Canadian culture. I think that's normal, and it is vital.
Past time that the streaming platforms contribute to their fair share to our culture, just as traditional broadcasters have done up to now. And we have a cultural policy system that has served Canadians for decades here and around the world. But Canada and the world have changed.
And the current reality is that platforms are becoming a bigger and bigger part of our lives. Increasingly, Canadians are foregoing their subscriptions to cable. In fact, today, over 70% of Canadians subscribe to platforms to watch content, and that is a reality that will remain and is likely to increase. What we want with C-11 is to ensure that our next generation of artists and creators will continue to succeed in the digital age. And you know, I followed the debates. I heard a number of ideas that I find interesting. For example, redefining Canadian content, adding provisions to support Indigenous peoples and racialized Canadians, providing more support to our cultural workers, and many more ideas.
I also heard last week actually, from a founding member of the Tragically Hip, one of Canada's most beloved band, on why we need to do this and why we need to do this now. I've also heard concerns and criticism, and that's normal. And you know what? We need that. It's a normal discussion around the bill. Now, the government has been extremely clear that we have no intention of regulating what people post online, and as some have claimed. And while I think that we have made this clear in C-11, I always said that I'm open to improving it. As a former House leader, and Mr. Julian would know this, I know we need to work together, particularly in a minority parliament. And I'm committed to doing that. Actually, I would say that I've been doing that since day one. But I'm also committed to passing this bill, because it's what Canada needs, it's what Canadians voted for, and to be honest, all the parties here in this room had something like this in their platforms. Now, as we have said since the beginning, C-11 is about the obligations of platforms, not users. So I always say platforms in, users out. That's the key point. It's about bringing online broadcasters into our system. It's about creating more space for diverse voices and stories. Pourquoi?
Why? Because decades ago, a choice was made to defend our culture. That choice was made because our stories are too important to us. They are what brings us together, what unites us. and what sets us apart from others. I've said it before and I'll say it again, Mr. Chair. If you profit from the system, you must contribute to the system, period.
About fairness. And of course, the debate won't end here. The bill will be further debated in the House, by the Senate, and after royal assent of the bill, I will provide policy direction to the CRTC. And once the CRTC receives the policy direction, they're going to hold public hearings and develop their regulations, as they've always done this as a public interest regulator. So, Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Chair, and congratulations on your new role. I said Madam Chair because I wrote this for last week, but I'm ready to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. And with 30 seconds to spare, so we'll save that time for later. We'll start with our 6-minute round. The rotation is known to this committee, so we'll start with Mr. Waugh, and I believe Mr. Waugh and Ms. Thomas are splitting this round.
Good.
Mr. Waugh, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to just pick up on your last comment. Minister, thank you for coming today, along with Mr. Ripley. Good to see you again, both of you. So will you release your policy directive today to this committee so we can fully understand the impacts of the bill before we actually proceed ahead with this?
we'll release it, as mentioned, sorry, in my speech, once the bill is adopted. I think it's the proper way to go, finishing the bill, making sure what's in the bill, and then we'll be able to send that to the CRTC, and there will be broad consultation.
So you wouldn't bring it to committee? What you're saying is today you wouldn't bring it to us to have a look at your policy directive?
Well, first we have to adopt the bill. Then based on the bill, I will draft those policy directions, and CRTC will get it.
All right. So you said the bill is about making sure that Canadian voices are discoverable online, and that's the big one. But so far, I think we haven't had a definition of discoverability. Will you and your party support an amendment to provide a clear definition of discoverability and explain exactly how the platforms will be required to make Canadian content discoverable?
Well, I think it's up to the committee to discuss and debate that. But discoverability, I mean, I don't think we have to look very far to it. Just to understand, it's a simple concept. We want to see more Canadian stories, more Canadian music, more Canadian films. That's as simple as it sounds. And I think we all care about it. I'm sure, Mr. Waugh, that you care about it too, because it's part of our identity. It's our stories, right?
I agree. But as you said, Canadian content does not qualify as official CanCon under the current rules here. So this poses, I think, a kind of a big problem for the platforms. Are they required to carry Canadian content, but the Canadian content they have does not count because it's outdated rules that will actually apply? So will you commit to ensuring, Canadian content rules are updated at least 1 year in advance of implementing this bill, C-11?
Well, thank you for the question. As I mentioned many times before, I will ask the CRTC, and they're fully aware of this, that I will ask them to update and modernize Canadian content. I mean, there's so many things that's been there forever. Just the bill we're discussing, it's been there for like 4 years. I had black hair at the time, right? So it's time that we modernize that and many other things, and this is exactly what we're doing.
I'm going to give Ms. Thomas the chance to fill the rest of the time. Thank you.
Sure. Minister, you said that this bill is going to go after platforms. Platforms are used by new media content creators. For those platforms to abide by your regulation, those platforms will then have to regulate the users. Hence, user-generated content is in fact captured by this bill. Can you help me understand if that works a different way?
Well, it's very simple. It's the platforms that are regulated.
So it's users that use those platforms,
The CRTC is not interested in looking at what is in the program. Can you imagine the CRTC looking at millions, billions in a year of? It's impossible.
Okay.
That's not what
so,
it is.
Minister,
it's about
is
making sure
it
there's working content.
users that use those platforms? Or who uses those platforms? Do animals use those platforms? Do people use those platforms? New media creators use those platforms?
Everyone, you, me,
users
everyone.
use those platforms. So if those users are using those platforms that are regulated, is there a chance that that regulation then could be put on those people so that they're abiding by it?
No, it's not about the users.
It's not about the users. So it
So it's
stops at
not
the
about the
platform
users.
somehow magically. It doesn't ever get passed down to the users. No
Well, a
behavior is
platform-
expected of them.
You're talking about streamers, right? The streaming platforms? You're talking about the Netflix and the Disney and others? That's what you're talking about?
Is that your definition of platform?
The streamers are those big companies, yes. And they have to have an impact on the Canadian culture.
Will YouTube be a platform?
In parts of the commercial content, it will, yes.
So YouTube users would be
some
captured by this bill.
Because sometimes YouTube can be used as a substitute for for Spotify, for example. We've used that example many times in the past.
Right.
But it has to be commercial content. So it's not about going after the content. CRTC is not interested. They don't want to know what users put. They're not going to say, oh, your video is good or not good, or you should have this or more than that. No. It's just about to see what qualifies as commercial content, because at the end of the day, the revenues generated will be depending on that.
Sure. Okay. So now, sorry. So that's not actually a part of the bill, that there would be any sort of dependency on revenue. Now you're introducing that. So is that an amendment that you're planning to make to the bill then?
The bill is totally about contributing to Canadian content.
So are you saying that a content generator would have to bring in a certain amount of revenue in order to be captured by this bill?
No.
No, it doesn't matter how much you make, you'll be captured.
I think you're listening to whatever you want to listen to. I mean, the bill is very simple. It's about the streamers contributing to Canadian culture, right? That's what it is. And then making sure that we find our stories online. That's what the bill is all about. That's it.
So, Minister, if your intention is not to capture individual users, then why don't you take 4.2 out of the bill altogether and just make that very clear?
Because there's content, commercial content, that does exactly the same on Spotify. So you find that content on YouTube, and you find it also on Spotify. 66% of Kenyans go on YouTube to listen to music. And that is important. It's a very important amount. There's a very important number there.
Okay, so how are you going to define commercial content?
We said it. Those are three things.
What are the three things?
Revenues, the joint revenues. Then
In this bill, there's a line about revenue?
4.2, if you read it.
It says a specific amount of revenue?
And that
No.
is.
Sorry.
No, I know it
Can I?
doesn't.
Because the CRTC takes the three things. Revenue, do you find it elsewhere? And also if it has a code, and they will draft regulations based on that. And that's what people will have to.
Everything has a code, Minister.
And that's
everything
time for
that
that.
uses music has a code.
And
so
that's
you
the
just
time for
said
that
that
round.
everything can be captured.
Point of order.
Ms.
Thank
Thomas.
you. Okay. Thank you. There was about an extra 25 seconds, which I will add on to each other first round as well, out of fairness. So, Mr. Lewis, the floor is yours for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being here. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate that you're listening to the arts sector. Over the course of the study, we've heard witness after witness tell just how vital this bill is for our cultural sector and how urgent it is to get through. I've got a few quotes here from what we've heard. We've heard from the CEO of Music Publishers Canada, Margaret McGuffin, earlier this week, who said, quote, Bill C-11 provides an important balance by giving the Commission the tools it needs to regulate when market forces fail. Modernizing the Broadcasting Act will ensure that as technology evolves and online platforms continue to grow, the music industry will continue to thrive. Close quote. Randy Kitt from Unifor told us that, quote, Bill C-11 is a much-needed update to the Broadcast Act to ensure that Canadians have access to local programming that couldn't happen if we let these internet giants control our media. So let's not get sidetracked by noise, close quote. Another quote from Bill Skolnick from the Coalition for Diversity of Cultural Expressions told us that, quote, we can only hope that this attempt to revise our legislation will conclude shortly so the benefits can reach Canadian creators, artists, producers, and organizations as soon as possible. They've been waiting for a very long time, close quote. And one more quote was Maria Boltman from the organization Friends told us that, quote, requiring contributions from foreign tech giants that extract billions of dollars from our country will help sustain our industry while driving investment and innovation in the creation of Canadian content that continues to reflect our diversity of voices and who we are as Canadians. Foreign contributions will level the playing field between Canadian broadcasters and foreign platforms. Frankly, it sends a message to the world that Canada is open for business, but there are no more free rides. If you benefit from the system, you must contribute to it. Close quote. I couldn't agree anymore with those quotes. This is a badly needed update to our broadcast system that will support Canadian culture for years to come. We've spent a lot of time talking about this, and I'd like to ask you directly, Minister, what will this bill do for our Canadian culture and our artists?
Thank you, Mr. Lewis, and thank you for reminding of us about the importance of all those things. And I think this bill plays a major role for Canadian cultural sector. That this is why it's got so much support from the music, the video, the television, the movie industries, and it's time that we move on. It's really time that we move on. This bill's been there for not updated for what, 40 years? About 40 years, and this, I think, is a well-balanced bill that brings fairness into the system, because this is what it's all about. Leveling the playing field, having a fair system. Now, we have the streamers like I watch a lot of stuff on Disney. I'm a Star Wars fan. I watch stuff on Netflix and this and that, but they have no obligations, whereas others, the traditional broadcasters, they do have all kinds of obligations. And I think it's time that we level the playing field and that the streamers contribute to Canadian culture. And listen, some of them are already doing, that's great, we love it. Is it possible to do more? Can we discuss? Can we do things together? At the same time, it's a very flexible bill, which will tell a streamer, well, based on your own business model, this is how things could work. Let's discuss. And you, based on your own business model, which is different, this is how we can work. So there's a very flexible and collaborative approach on this. And I think it's important to protect our culture because it's who we are, right? So it's our past, it's our present, it's our future, it's the way we tell our stories. We made that decision a long time ago that to be different from our neighbors to the south. We love them, but hey, we're not them. We're different. So we put in place mechanisms to support our industries, our actors, our producers, directors, singers, and this is what it's all about. It's about supporting the music, the film, the video industries. I don't know why some people refuse to support them, and it's very sad, but we'll be there for them.
Thank you. I think we all agree that a copy and paste solution won't work, but I would like to hear from you directly about how C11 excludes individuals from these requirements. We've heard you say, just today, you've used the term platforms in, users out. You've used that many times. Can you expand on what you mean when you say that?
Well, absolutely. First, the bill is very clear. It excludes the users in 2.1, so it's written there, so I'm not inventing anything. And the rest of the bill speaks by itself. The problem is that people want us to see things that are not in the bill. They're not. They're simply not there. Right? So what we're looking for is if there's a platform or if there's a social media that plays an equivalent role of a streamer. And in this case, there's one. It's YouTube. But we're only talking about the commercial content, not what people post in line. Whatever you post online, I'm sure it's great, but the CRTC is not there. And the CRTC actually said it very clearly. Now, other people say, oh my God, you're going to play with algorithms. No, it's clearly written there that the CRTC cannot play with algorithms. So, there's a lot of things that are said about the bill that have nothing to do with the bill. The bill simply makes sure that the streamers and a platform that could be replaced or used as a streamer then is covered by the bill. That's it. Users know.
About 20 seconds, Mr. Lewis.
Oh, well, not enough to answer the question, but again.
Well, just to go back on Ms. Thomas' comment at the end, it's not if you have a number, then it touches you and includes it. No, there's three criteria we say are important. So to the CRTC, we say, this is your sandbox. Consider those three criteria, the most important being if you find the same content somewhere else, and then you draft regulations based on that.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Next round, Monsieur.
You have the floor for 6 minutes and 25 seconds. Thank you for the extra 25 seconds, Mr. Chair. You're doing a great job. Good day, Minister. I'd like to come back to the famous Section 4.2, generating lots of chit-chat, as you know, because you've been following this discussion for some time. So, as it pertains to revenue and commercial content, we can look at 4.21, that the CRTC, it talks about the CRTC, and when the CRTC has to take into account certain criteria, such as the interpreter does not have the text. I think that this creates concerns. This section creates concerns because some people who have contracts, if they're a TikToker, for example, that they might be subjected to regulation. What would you say in response to these concerns? Answer: that, with all due respect, they are not founded. The three criteria that are in the Act, the revenue, and the fact that it is found elsewhere, and the fact that it has a unique code, there's not one single of these factors that is taken by itself. The CRTC has to look at all of the bill and then establish rules afterwards based on that. A YouTuber who generates a lot of income with their videos won't be found on Spotify. It's not the same thing. So I like folk, for example, and I look up folk rock on YouTube. I won't get a skater video. They'll give me folk rock. I might see Joni Mitchell or what have you, Canadian singers. Mr. Champoux. So you're talking about Canadian singers. That pertains to discoverability to some extent. We heard a number of things here at the committee, and there was sometimes ambiguity in what we heard. When I hear about homegrown talent, or say I make Canadian content, but I don't qualify as Canadian content, we ask them, would you like to be defined as Canadian content? What would you say to those people? Are they considered Canadian content or not? Will they be listed in the search results on YouTube? For example, if I search skater videos. Answer: I would like to just make a parenthesis and say that through this bill, I discovered extraordinary individuals. And we also realized that it is worthwhile to discover more about these people and find out how we can work more with them in the future. The concerns that these people have, for example, that we're going to take over and say that their content is not okay and it doesn't meet Canadian content criteria, no. The CRTC does not regulate content like that. They won't say, oh, Mr. Champoux, you published such and such a video. The CRTC, and I don't know what the figures are of the number of videos uploaded per day by everyone. Imagine, in the course of a year, the CRTC can't keep track of all of that. No. We are interested in commercial content, which is sometimes substituted elsewhere, YouTube, on Spotify, for example, that this be treated in the same way. Mr. Champoux, you've spoken about creating a dialogue and finding out more about these people. And in my opinion, and as I've already said, these are artists. They're artisans of a universe that is being joined with broadcasting, whether or not we know it. And this will continue to increase as a trend. Can you talk to us about this industry, and not only the people at the heads of these organizations, but the creators themselves? Yes. Actually, I was looking at an artist who performed at the Junos. I also met a number of these creators, and I would say that our young creators are, and in Quebec as well, they're among the best. I also met with a group from Quebec, and we do need to continue working with them. Mr. Champoux, so are you looking at helping them because they're concerned that Bill C-11 will undermine them? And the CRTC was saying that they would never that they would give the mandate to the platforms such as TikTok. Yes, we are going to look into the how. It won't be up to us or the CRTC to regulate. They're not going to look into algorithms. Looking into algorithms is prohibited by this bill. So I think that all the necessary elements are included in the bill. The only way the CRTC would be interested in content is if it were commercial content and what percentage of it is. The Quebec National Assembly unanimously adopted a motion, and they went very far, saying that social media also needs to be regulated, that the Quebec government needs to be formally consulted before taking any action that will have an impact on Quebec culture. Do you have a good relationship with Quebec? Oh, yes. Yes, I spoke to Ms. Roy. I worked with her in the past. The first time that I worked in Heritage, and I'm sorry, but we will have to continue with our question round.
Tough but fair.
Vous êtes un dur à cuire, oui, mais je suis juste. Nous allons donc passer à Monsieur Julian.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Vous avez 6 minutes et 25 secondes.
And Mr. Minister, welcome to our committee. You probably followed the speeches in the House on C11. Something that struck me was a Conservative member saying that in some way C11 was somehow related to the government tracking what people do on their cell phones. I would like you to share what is the most far-fetched thing you've heard about C11. Because sometimes we've listened to speeches that are completely off track. Answer. Well, I've heard quite a few. Mr. Julian, what concerns me is the amount of misinformation that is shared by some members, not all, but some Conservative members around this bill. They take out this bill and they create a parallel debate about things that don't exist in the bill. That is what worries me. I'll give you an example. Mrs. Thomas said, the day that I was here, she tweeted, "Kill Bill C11. The bill needs to die 1,000 deaths." How can we have a constructive debate about how to amend C11 if already in her rhetoric she is saying that we need to kill this bill? I think every bill deserves well-informed and responsible debate, and we must do so. Mr. Julian. And that is obviously what we heard from the vast majority of witnesses as well. They want for this bill to be passed. There are concerns also, and people talk about.
You've already responded in part to this. Do you feel all of the elements of the bill reinforce the freedom of expression? And you also feel that that provides for clear direction to the CRTC that this bill has to be interpreted in a way that upholds freedom of expression?
I do, Mr. Julian. Freedom of expression. First of all, CRTC, whatever they do in terms of regulation, they have to respect freedom of expression. Second, the bill makes things very clearly. It was there before in the original Broadcasting Act. We bring some other elements in this act. And this is a sad part of the previous debate, where the debate on C10 took place on freedom of expression, which was on the side that had nothing to do with the bill, and the whole debate happened on that, while the bill was something else. This bill doesn't attack freedom of expression. It's not about freedom of expression. It's about streamers, right, that make a lot of money here, contribute to Canadian culture. That's it.
And you're satisfied that bill very, very clearly upholds freedom of expression, as a number of our witnesses have mentioned as well. Now, there was, I believe, a bit of a difference of opinion around the CRTC when they originally appeared. And the chair of the CRTC, Ian Scott, talked about user-generated content and said that that there is an ability to regulate under the Broadcasting Act now under user-generated content. When he appeared for a second time after a filibuster, he said very clearly, and the CRTC representatives did as well, that there is a very, very narrow scope around user-generated content. Is it your feeling as well that very narrow interpretation is sufficient?
Well, the CRTC is not interested in the content, as I said. La seule raison, Monsieur Julien.
Mr. Julian, the only reason why we mention content that is uploaded by users is that a certain portion of that could be commercial. We are only interested in commercial content, Mr. Julian. The things that we find on YouTube and Spotify. That is also the reality. But the CRTC is absolutely not interested in content. Imagine the resources that would require, whether it be here in Canada or other regulators in Australia or the UK, to have to go through all of that content. So people who are worried that the CRTC will come and look at their content and make a judgment on it, no. The only way the CRTC would look at it was if it were commercial content, and if so, there would be three criteria. So if there was discoverability, if there was a percentage of advertising that needed to be contributed, and when it comes to discoverability, it's important for us to know how we can help our artists be discovered. Mr. Julian, thank you. So also in witness testimony that we heard from Out TV, which was set aside by a number of distributors, even though they did want to offer content, and they were refused several times. My question is, in this type of situation where there is exclusion of a certain community, will that be addressed by C11? Answer. Well, Out TV is a group I had the opportunity to meet with in Vancouver and also here. I think what will be helpful to them in general is the objectives in the bill. That means that there will be more resource, more revenue for Canadian content. Owen, would you like to add anything? Thank you for the question, Mr. Julian. And yes, certainly, I did follow Out TV's testimony. So yes, in C11, there is currently a power of the CRTC that can oblige Amazon channels, for example, to have certain Canadian channels on their service. And they must negotiate in good faith.
There and carry on, but that concludes our 6-minute round. We will now go to our 5-minute round, and I will be very ruthless in this round so we can get the full round in. We have 25 minutes left and 25 minutes worth of questions, so we'll try to get the whole round. And just a reminder, for the sake of the interpreters, when there's a question and comment, try not to have the microphones on at the same time talking over each other. For the sake of the interpreters, that's a challenge. So second round, 5 minutes. Ms. Thomas for exactly 5 minutes.
Minister, you keep using the term, quote, commercial content. Is that in the bill?
Commercial content? Yes, commercial content. It's what we're trying to define to see if it's replacing or not things that you see.
So
elsewhere.
commercial content is a legal term used in the bill?
It's a term used in the bill, yes.
Okay, and how do you define commercial content?
Well, we said we're giving guidance to the CRTC based on if the revenues based, if you find this elsewhere, and the unique number. So it's not one of the three. We're giving this to the CRTC, and they have to take those three in consideration when they draft the regulations.
Okay, and what is that revenue that you're looking for in order to know whether or not it's going to be regulated?
There's no number.
There's no number?
No.
So who will determine that number?
It has nothing to do with a number. No. It's no determination of a number.
Minister, you just said that it was based on revenue, whether or not it was commercial
yes,
content.
But, well,
so what is that revenue number?
If there's revenues, the CRTC will take those three criteria. They will draft the regulations that will take in consideration the three elements.
So what's that revenue cutoff?
There's no revenue cutoff. You know that.
Well, I'm asking you for clarification. When you're saying commercial content is what this bill is going after, what's that number? How much revenue do you
You
want
know
them
there's
to
not
have
one,
to make in
because-
order to be
because-
counted as commercial content?
Because those are direction criteria giving to the CRTC to draft the regulations.
So it's up to the CRTC to determine that monetary amount.
They're not there to determine a specific
They were not going to determine a specific amount.
And again, even if an online creator would make a lot of money with it, if it's not used as a substitute or you don't find it on Spotify, it has nothing to do.
Minister, sorry, I'm going to let you clarify once again. How are you going to determine, at which revenue threshold are you going to determine whether it's commercial content?
Commercial content is more than just revenue.
But you said that is one of the three criteria.
order.
So
It's one
if
of
all
the
three
three-
have to be
Just
there,
a second, we
what's-
do have a point of order.
what-
Mr. Biddle on a point of order.
I think, Mr. Chair, I think you discussed the talking over the witnesses thing and kind of let it go now a few times, but there's been a chronic interrupting of the minister after the question is asked and should be able to answer his questions.
Thank you. And we will try to have the question and comments about the same amount as questions, and we will try to keep the microphones one at a time just for the sake of the interpretation. Ms. Thomas.
I trust that time is not taken off of my clock. Minister, you're very confusing to those that are watching, because on one hand you're saying revenue will be accounted for and taken into consideration along with two other criteria, and on the other hand you're saying no, revenue doesn't need to be considered. So can you please be clear? Is revenue going to be considered as one of the criteria to determine whether or not content is covered
I don't
by
think
this
I'm
bill?
confusing, Ms. Thomas. I think
My question is simple,
I think
Minister.
I've been very clear.
What is the revenue threshold?
What is the revenue threshold that will have you support the bill?
What is the
Would
revenue
you support
threshold?
the bill in either consideration or never?
Minister, my question is toward you. What is the revenue threshold?
I told you it's one of the criteria that there's.
I know
no-
it's one of the criteria.
It's one of the criteria.
So what is that criteria? What's that number? What's that revenue threshold?
You've asked the same question probably 8 times, the same one you filibustered last week. It's not going to get you anywhere.
So you
I
don't
answered
know
your
the revenue
questions.
threshold?
I did answer your question.
You didn't.
Yeah,
What's
I
the
did.
number
I did
then?
8 times.
So what's the number? What's the revenue threshold?
It's one of the 3 criteria that the CRTC takes to generate the regulations, which will apply then.
Right. So
to
what
the
is that
plat-
monetary
to-
amount that
to-
you're going to be
to
able to
the
determine whether or
platforms.
not it applies to it?
I've answered your question. You know very well that.
I don't, because
Yes,
it's
you
not in
do.
Bill C-11. There's no revenue threshold given. What's the monetary amount?
It's one of the 3
If someone
criteria.
makes $100 million in revenue, if someone
It's one
makes
of the 3 criteria.
$50,000 in revenue,
And-
$30,000 in
and
revenue,
for online
what's the threshold?
creators-
Who's in, who's out?
And for online creators, that wouldn't change anything because they're excluded, even if you like to say to people falsely that they're included. They're not.
So
it
in order
doesn't
to
change
determine
anything.
if someone is producing, quote, commercial content, which is the term you like to use, even though it's actually not defined in the bill, but
Commercial
you get
content.
away. It's actually very sneaky of you to use that term here today.
Isn't that a personal
so
attack?
commercial.
No, that's not a personal attack. No, I would have said it is.
Minister,
Personal.
I'm just asking a very simple question. I'm just asking if you can provide me with that revenue threshold, the monetary amount.
I answer, but I don't think that anything that I say will have you.
I think I missed the monetary amount.
support
Could you
the
give
bill
that
or
dollar
anything.
figure again?
You said that this bill needs to die 1,000 deaths, Ms. Thomas.
Could you give me that
So
monetary amount?
What's the point?
And you said that
don't
we
want
needed
this
to have a
bill pass
conversation, and I'm
anyways.
trying to have a conversation with you, Mr.
I'm trying
Rodriguez.
to.
Point of order.
Yes, Mr. Biddle on a point of order.
I hear Ms. Thomas saying she wants a conversation. The minister, and again, for the translators, perhaps we should ask a question, let the minister answer, and not talk over him.
And we do have about 20 seconds left, so Ms. Thomas, if you want to take the last 20 seconds. And
I was just hoping that Mr. Rodriguez could give me a dollar figure.
Is that the same question? I think it is, right?
What is that
And there will
dollar
be also
figure in order to
consultations?
determine if it is commercial content and therefore captured by this bill?
Once the CRTC takes the 3 criteria to establish regulations, there'll also be consultations.
I recognize
so all
that.
The discussions
One of those
will happen.
criteria is a
I'm sure you'd be
monetary
with
looking
that,
forward
that's
to
the 5 minutes
participate.
for that round.
No answer.
Ms. Hefner for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you, Minister and Mr. Ripley, for being with us today with your testimony. We really appreciate your time in answering these questions. And you have touched on this point a little bit already through your testimony, but I think it bears more elaboration. And I'd like to talk about what happens after the passage of C11. So throughout this study, we've heard lots of speculation about what regulation might look like, including members of this committee telling digital-first creators that they will be taxed, and we know that that's not true. We have had a few witnesses mention that a public open process will be conducted. But I think all the members of this committee would benefit from a thorough explanation of this process. There still seems to be confusion, and so I'm wondering, Minister, if you could tell us what exactly will happen after royal assent of C11.
Thank you. That's a very, very, very important question, because this is one of the steps. Then, of course, we're going back to the House, to the Senate, and then royal assent. And then we will provide the CRTC with policy direction. So guidelines, direction, clear direction from the government. And then the CRTC will be consulted. And who will be able to participate? Everyone that's interested in this. Of course, there will be tons of people from the cultural sector. So I expect people from the music, the video, cinema, and all those to participate into this. And after that, the CRTC will take into consideration the policy direction, the fact that they have to take into consideration the three criteria, the revenue, if the content is found elsewhere, if there's an identifying number, all of that, they take that into consideration, they consult, they draft the legislation, and there will be an ongoing consultation, because this is so important for the cultural sector.
So just so I'm clear, after this bill goes through committee and all the discussions and it goes through royal assent, there will be more consultation and more discussion with all the stakeholders to make sure that the policy directive and the regulations are appropriate to do what we want to do.
You understand it very, very well. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yes.
And also, the second question, you have touched on this topic as well today. Social media, we know that it's an incredible tool. It's changed our society over the past couple of decades. We've heard witnesses talk about how they're using social media to connect with international audiences. They're not just staying in Canada anymore. This is really important as well. They're sharing Canadian stories with the rest of the world. We've also heard over and over these creators will not face any obligations through C11. Now, the opposition chooses to focus on C11 and the potential impacts on social media, continuing to speculate wildly about what this bill will mean for Canadians' experience on these platforms. So, Minister, you and your officials have repeated that social media is not the focus. That's not what you're here to do. C11 will not have any impact on what Canadians say or do on social media. You said it here today again. There are a number of clauses in the bill that clearly state that fact. That being said, some social media platforms may be subject to obligations under C11. So I'm hoping that you can just clarify this for the benefit of my colleagues. Why include social media at all?
Well, the platforms are included are the streamers, unless there's a specific platforms that can play, in a way, the certain role of some of the streamers. It happens with YouTube. Not for a lot of the stuff, just for some stuff that is commercial. Now, people post online every day. I'm sure like a lot of us today have posted and will post again tonight and tomorrow, and it's normal. So can you imagine if we really wanted the CRTC to look at all videos and posts and say, CRTC, you have to look at all of that? First, that zero interested. CRTC is not. And even if they wanted to do it, they would not have the resources. It would be impossible. So it's not what's happening here. So this is not what's happening in England, in Australia, New Zealand, nowhere, right? But the only reason why we want to determine what is commercial content, because that's part of the equation, that's part of the numbers that will be used to determine what will be the contribution of you to the Canadian content. That's it. That's it.
Do I have?
You have 6 seconds, so
Okay.
we'll...
Tell us quickly about the urgency of this legislation, Minister.
And there you go. Oh. Thank you, Ms. Hefner and Minister. We now go to Mr. Champoux for 2 minutes.
For 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, let's talk about something else now. So 91H programming services is what I would like to talk to you about. They find that they are ill-equipped in the face of web giants. I'm talking about APTN, EC Television. These are programs that we are all very proud of. Meteo Media, Weather Network, etc. These are 91H services, and they find that with the bill in its current wording, they will end up ill-equipped to negotiate distribution agreements with online distributors. They don't have advertising that allows them to have the financial wherewithal to, for example, challenge a CRTC ruling. That would be a very long process. So my first question, could you guarantee certain provisions for these services? And would you also be open to providing them with the means to challenge rulings if they find that they are disadvantaged after a ruling? Thank you very much, Mr. Champoux, for the question. You're right to raise this. It's very important, and you're right to say that these services play a very important role. For example, APTN, which is responsible for sharing Indigenous voices, CPAC as well. But there are very serious challenges. They are Canadian players. Our American colleagues were very clear that there can be a big issue when regulating online broadcasters. There will be funds coming in from C11, about $1 billion per year, that could be used to help those services, for example. I think it would be interesting to find sources outside of the bill as well. Mr. Champoux, and you just said? I'm sorry, Mr. Champoux, but we need to get started with Mr. Champoux Mr. Julian rather, for 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Mr. Julian, I would like to come back to those same questions. You said $1 billion will be generated per year. Yes. And where will those funds go? Answer. It will depend. We have to look at the objectives. What do we want? We all want the creation of Canadian content. And for example, Mr. Champoux would say Quebec content, and myself as well. We all want to be able to hear more diverse voices. We want to hear Indigenous voices more. Maybe we can do it with a mandatory provision. Maybe we can find other ways to do so. And looking at official languages as well, and perhaps other languages. The money will go towards these objectives, and it will be upwards of $1 billion a year. Mr. Julian, that is a significant sum. It can lead to countless possibilities. And what I would like to know is this. Has the department already got some idea of how that money will be shared out? Answer. Mr. Julian, perhaps I didn't answer directly enough. The objectives are clear. There will be money for Indigenous production and for marginalized communities, etc., for official language minority communities. And after that, there will be consultations and projects will be launched. And the important thing, first of all, is to guarantee those funds. Mr. Julian, so for the moment, you haven't... Sometimes the department does make estimates. You haven't estimated yet. No. Mr. Ripley? We looked at the ways that the CRTC currently imposes things on broadcasters, and we have made certain calculations. There would be funds definitely allocated to Canadian production, and also when it comes to licenses broadcasters will have to contribute to, for example, dramas, documentaries, children's television. So we imagine that that will be part of what the funds go to.
Julian and Mr. Owen Ripley. Next, we have Mr. Waugh and Mr. Perkins for 5 minutes.
$1 billion a year. I've been on this committee now for a number of years. I've never heard that figure. Never. Never. Where are you getting that money from? Where are you?
It's the first time I hear it too, Mr. Waugh. You're right. And the figure we were working with before, and I'll ask Mr. Ripley to comment after, was 830 million. But the fact, the COVID, the fact that we went more and more to the streamers, right? I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did. We all did.
I heard the 800 million, and I had trouble with that number.
Yeah,
but I've got
Mr.
a big
Ripley was saying
problem with $1 billion.
But the fact is that there were more and more used, and the fact that then you got Disney and others that came in adds to the number. Owen?
Yes, so that's a revised figure, Mr. Waugh.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
We previously discussed the $830 million. We updated that figure recently, and what we have seen is that you saw the growth of these services over the course of the pandemic, obviously, and we've also seen the entry of new services into the Canadian market. So, for example, we've seen Disney Plus launch, we've seen Apple TV launch, right? So that new figure takes into account really the growth of online streaming services in Canada and their updated subscriber base.
So we can't even get APTN here to testify, and you know, when I look down the way to my left, they actually get carriage fees. Everybody in this country has APTN, and everybody in this country is paying for APTN. So there is a revenue stream for APTN with diverse stories. There is a revenue stream for Weather Network. Everyone pays for that, and AC Television. We all know that. But when I talked about traditional broadcasters, Bell, the biggest media player in this country, was upset because now all of a sudden, because of the streamers, they might have to pay just a little more for American shows that they show from 7 to 10 on prime time, because now all of a sudden they can't generate as much revenue because all of a sudden the streamers are competing in Hollywood for American shows. Have you thought about the traditional broadcasters crying like Bell Media did in this, when they only spend $1 billion on Canadian programming and hardly any of it in prime time from 7 to 10? Shame on them. You talk about diverse stories, traditional broadcasters, they can't wait to get on the jet to Hollywood to buy American programming and give little to Canadian programming.
Well, Mr. Waugh, if you think we need more Canadian programming, I'm with you.
Well, don't you think that?
100%. That's why you should support the bill.
But I just heard Bell say they might spend $10 billion on shows. I don't know what they spend. They wouldn't answer my question on that.
But,
you know, but they're busy buying NFL football for Sunday afternoon.
But this bill will make, will have more Canadian content available, and that's what I'm sure we want the same thing. We may not agree on a lot of stuff on this. I'm sure you want more Canadian content. This bill will provide more.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but we'll go to Mr. Perkins.
It will. I'm sure you're going to vote for it at the end of the
Mr.
day.
Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister. I've looked through the bill. It's a big bill, and I can't find commercial content defined. Could you tell me where it is in the bill?
Well, 4.2 it defines the criteria that will explain what commercial content is. So the commercial content that we call commercial content that will be caught will be based on the 3 criteria.
So the legal pretzel clause.
What?
The legal pretzel clause, the one that has like triple negatives and would have screwed up
No.
In 4.2.
No.
Yeah. That
I don't
doesn't
know
say
the expression
commercial.
about the pretzel, but
It doesn't say commercial content in terms of
well,
how
it
it's
says
defined.
that commercial content will be based on the 3 criteria, and there are 4.2. They're there.
Okay. 918 says algorithms aren't involved, but nonetheless the government says that Canadian content will be higher up in the search engines and the streaming services for people to see. How is that going to be achieved? How does Canadian content get pushed up the screen as users see it when there is no algorithmic control?
And there won't be any from the CRTC. The CRTC is precluded from playing with algorithms, and we would never want the CRTC.
So
or
how are you
anyone
going to
else.
measure the outcomes of that in terms
That's
of
exactly
seeing how
what
it goes?
you said the word.
How are you going to watch it? You're going to have to look at the algorithms. You're going to have to look at the performance.
The outcomes. This is what we're interested in. What YouTube does, it's their thing. Now, there are other options too. You can have, for example, on the homepage, it doesn't even touch algorithms. Maybe you can have a Canadian section. Maybe in their own, maybe they have a playlist of Canadian content. I mean, there's other options, but it's
no
the
individual
And,
company is.
I apologize, Mr. Perkins and Minister. That is the 5 minutes, and I am being ruthless with this round. It is 4:27, and I know the Minister has to leave at 4:30, so we'll start Mr. Housefather's 5-minute round, and it'll be up to the Minister if he can stay for the extra 2.5 minutes for the full round of questions. But Mr. Housefather, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Monsieur le Ministre. C'est un grand plaisir de vous accueillir.
It's a great pleasure to welcome you to the committee, Minister. I will be very brief.
Sure. When it comes to Section 4.2, we've heard a lot of comments again about what is regulated or what is not regulated. Can you clarify again that content is not regulated?
Absolutely. It is not. There's people that try to make others believe that the CRTC is there and the government through the CRTC that we want to know what people produce and if their videos are fine or not, and if we're not happy with it, we're going to take it offline. No. And the CRTC said it before, they're not interested in that content. The only thing we're looking at is what becomes part of commercial content, and that is defined in criteria 4.2.
Exactly. And there's been a lot of comments about 4.2a and the ambiguity with respect to direct or indirect revenues. Normally, if someone was interested in actually supporting a bill and wanting changes to it, they would propose amendments to that section of the bill that they were confused about, correct?
If there was any interest, yeah, but I don't sense a lot of interest on that side, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
I understand. J'en ai juste une autre question, Monsieur.
I have just one other question, Minister. I believe there are aspects in the bill that are of vital importance to our cultural sovereignty, in particular the future of Francophone Canada. Could you comment further on that? Answer. The bill has a very important aspect that unfortunately we don't discuss often enough. So what are the objectives we want to achieve through this bill? We want to make sure that we can continue telling our stories, share our music. We want for our voices and our films to be heard and seen. We can't give up on what we create and what we produce because it's a matter of our identity. It's who we are, and it's a way to tell our stories. So this bill ensures more funds for the creation of Canadian content. And of course, there will be some of this for the Indigenous community, official language minorities, etc. And it will also make this content more easily accessible. Back in the day, we went into a record store, and there was a record there at the cash register, and it suggested it to us, and this is what we'll be doing, but online. Mr. Housefather, I fully understand. I know your time is limited, so I will hand it over to the chair to conclude this part of the meeting. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Housefather, and thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Owen Ripley, for your time this afternoon. We will proceed with the second panel in a few minutes, but thank you, Minister, for your time, and we will suspend briefly as we switch over the panels. Thank you, colleagues. this meeting. I'm assuming we don't have opening comments from this set of witnesses, so we'll continue on with our third round, the 5-minute round. I believe the first round will be the Conservatives, and I will look to my colleagues to see who is taking that round.
That's why I don't know.
Mr. Waugh, the floor is yours. 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, department officials, and the two add-ons from the department. Mr. Ripley, that number that you gave me of $1 billion, I need to know how that is going to be generated. I had questions at 832 million, and I was blown away here. I got to be honest. When I heard $1 billion, like I said, I had trouble at 832. Now you've got 200 more million coming from somewhere. Tell me where this is coming from.
Thank you, Mr. Waugh. So the methodology behind that number includes that a good chunk of it, just over 900 million of it, will come from what we would call expenditure requirements. So that would be an obligation on online streaming services to spend a certain percentage of their revenues on producing Canadian stories. And so that's how it works right now for broadcasters like TVA or CTV or whatnot. And those obligations, just to give you a reference point, for example, Canadian broadcasters spend just below, these days it's just below approximately $3 billion in Canadian programs, right? So it's to give you a reference point. So that figure is largely composed of what we would call expenditure requirements.
So someone like Netflix, for an example, which one may be the biggest online provider that people in this country watch, what are we looking at from them?
I don't have the Netflix figure in front of me. One of my colleagues might, but I mean, it is for sure. What I would say to you, Mr. Waugh, is for sure Netflix is doing a huge amount of production activity already in Canada. Most of it would not currently qualify as a Canadian program, right? And so part of the impetus behind this bill is to get them to do more on the Canadian side, right? Involve more Canadian creatives, tell more Canadian stories, right? And it's great that they do so much business here in Canada, but obviously we want to put a challenge to them to do more to tell Canadian stories. And the minister's been clear that conversation's got to include looking at the definition of what constitutes Canadian program. And in fact, you were on this committee with the previous bill and know that there was discussion around kind of putting down some factors in the bill around the importance of looking beyond just Canadian creatives, but also to Canadian cultural expression and those kind of factors. So that will have to be a conversation that is had when the bill moves out of the legislative process into the regulatory process.
There are some that would say that Netflix spends more on production in this country than Bell, other media in this country. What do you say to that? Because I'm sure they do.
I'm not sure whether Amy or you have the figure. If not, Mr. Waugh, we can get you.
Yeah, I would like some of these figures. What do you think, Amy?
So Netflix has revenues in Canada of approximately. Sorry, 1 second. So they have revenues in Canada and the United States of approximately $3.3 billion. You know what? I'm going to get back. Numbers changing, so I'm going to get
numbers. Yeah, but I'm saying a lot of these are spending more than traditional broadcasters for production in this country, right? And now you're telling me they're going to actually have to pay more because of the $900 million coming from whoever it is, Disney or Netflix or Apple or whatever. So
it's not about doing more necessarily, Mr. Waugh. So again, Netflix, is a good example because they're already here. They're doing a ton of production activity in Canada, right? So it's about actually using the market just like we do with CTV, for example, and say, you know, because you're in the Canadian market and earning so much from Canadian subscribers, our expectation is that a certain percentage of what you earn here is spent on Canadian production as opposed to what we would call foreign location production that doesn't necessarily have that, you know, high involvement of Canadian creatives or tell those Canadian stories, for example.
Yeah, I guess where I'm coming from, when I look at the traditional broadcasters, they use the news as Canadian content. And they have produced very little documentaries in this country, and they've got this one area where they say we've spent a lot of money on news, but I can tell you, you know, they don't produce what they once did in documentaries and shows. And so, and as I said to BCE, I give you credit because they have more news hours than anybody in this country. But it's kind of a fallacy thing because during their newscasts, they have quite a bit of American news, as you know. So, you know, they throw up, you know, we've got more Canadian content, but really it's just news.
And unfortunately, that is the 5-minute round. I apologize, Mr. Waugh, but perhaps we can come back to the answer in a future round. Mr. Biddle, you have the floor for 5 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And we do have some unfinished business before the committee, and I do want to apologize for the witnesses for being here. But this should, for those who are watching, this should really only take a few minutes. And again, like I said last time, I'm willing, it shouldn't take more than the 6 minutes that I have, and I'm willing to cede those 6 minutes. But I move that the committee commence its clause-by-clause study of the Online Streaming Act no later than Wednesday, June 8th at 3:30 p.m. And I don't know, I have it copies in both official languages if I can provide to the clerk. And thank you.
We'll just pause just momentarily while those are distributed. We will just suspend momentarily while those are distributed. Mr. Biddle, had you yielded the floor, or are you? Okay, we do have a speakers list. As of right now, I have Ms. Thomas and Mr. Perkins. If anyone wishes to speak to it, please indicate to either myself or the clerk, and we will add that to the list. Ms. Thomas, on the motion.
Thank you, Chair. Sure, I would offer an amendment to this motion, and the amendment would be as follows. That the committee commence its clause-by-clause study on the Online Streaming Act, and then I would cross out all words after that and replace them with, so that the committee commence its clause-by-clause study on the Streaming Act, on the Online Streaming Act, after the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage commences a study on the alleged involvement of Hockey Canada in sexual assaults committed in 2018, and that during the study, the committee invite the Minister of Sport to appear for no less than 1 hour, and that the committee invite representatives of Hockey Canada to appear for no less than 2 hours. The reason I'm moving this amendment or suggesting this amendment is because it still provides a time frame. We will commence the clause by clause following this study. But this study is important because it is one that was moved with unanimous consent in the House of Commons, which means that every single political party has agreed that this study is of great importance. So the governing party, the NDP, the Bloc, the Green, the Conservatives, and all independent members have agreed that this motion, this study, is important and that it should be done at Heritage Committee. That motion unanimous consent was granted unanimous consent on June 2nd in the House of Commons. The study is an important one. It is a serious one, and I believe that time is of the essence. And so it would be diligent for this committee to then move forward and to take on that study, which, yes, I realize puts
apologize, Ms. Thomas. But for the benefit of our clerk, could you just reread the amendment?
Can I reread it?
Yes.
Is that what you're asking?
Yes, please. Thank you.
I'll do my best. So that the committee commence its clause-by-clause study on the Online Streaming Act. After the committee studies the alleged involvement of Hockey Canada in sexual assaults committed in 2018, and that the committee invite the Minister of Sport to appear for no less than 1 hour, and that the committee invite representatives of Hockey Canada to appear for no less than 2 hours. Just looking for confirmation from the clerk.
Yeah, if you just want to read, why don't we read the whole thing over just once more? I believe we have up until the last invitation.
And that the committee invite representatives of Hockey Canada to appear for no less than 2 hours. So perhaps just before I continue then, out of respect for the committee and the clerk, perhaps that we should read that back, just so everybody has the wording that we're looking at.
I'm just going to read this really slowly for myself and for the interpreters. Please jump in at any time if I make a mistake. That the committee commence its clause-by-clause study on the Online Streaming Act after the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage commences a study on the alleged incidences of, oh dear, oh, my handwriting, abuse. I'm sorry, Ms. Thomas, could you clarify the wording of that one word?
Sure. So first of all, I recognize why you used the word commences because it is what I originally used and then went back and retracted. So I would say completes.
Completes. Thank you for the clarification. So the Canadian, the Online Streaming Act, after the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage completes a study, its study?
Completes a study or its study. I leave it with you, whatever you believe is best.
Okay.
On the alleged involvement of Hockey Canada.
Involvement, thank you. Of, oh, that was hockey. Thank you. Appalling handwriting. The alleged involvement of Hockey Canada in several assaults.
In sexual assaults.
In sexual assaults.
Mm-hmm.
Sexual assaults committed in 2018, and that the committee invite the Minister of Sport to appear for no less than 1 hour, and that the committee invite representatives of Hockey Canada for no less than 2 hours. Is that the correct text of the amendment?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you very much for your patience.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, was that Mr. Housefather?
It is.
Mr. Housefather, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chair, I would seek from you a ruling as to whether or not that amendment is receivable, given that it changes a date certain to a date uncertain.
Thank you, Mr. Housefather. I will momentarily suspend and seek the advice of the table, and I will return with a ruling. we'll resume this meeting. There is obviously some gray area on this, so I will rule the amendment permissible, and so we will continue with the debate on the amendment. And Ms. Thomas has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Sure. So I was in the middle of explaining why this motion, why the amendment to the motion is important. It does ask us to push the pause button on C11 and to complete a study with regard to Hockey Canada and the alleged involvement in sexual assaults that were committed in 2018. The reason why that is important is because it is in accordance with a motion that was passed in the House of Commons with unanimous consent on Thursday, June 2nd, 2022. And that motion reads as follows. By unanimous consent, it was resolved that the House call Hockey Canada before the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage to shed light on its involvement in a case of alleged sexual assaults committed in 2018. Given that that motion was passed then, and this is the committee that is responsible for acting on that motion, it seems incumbent upon us then to do so. Again, I would highlight that it was passed unanimously, which means that all parties voted yes to it. Not just all parties, but all members voted yes to it. It is a very important matter. It is a very time-sensitive matter. And in addition to that, I guess I would draw attention to the Minister of Sport and the words that she spoke in a media interview that was released on June 3rd. The direct quote here in the article is, she said, I am shocked and angry to read about the allegations made against the players of the Canadian junior hockey team. All Canadians want to know, and me too, is whether any public funds were used to cover up this story of gang rape. She said, adding that an audit of federal funding is on the way. So obviously the Minister of Sport has recognized that it's important to know whether or not public funds were in fact used to help cover up this story, or this occurrence, I should say. And then she goes on to commit that there would be an audit of federal funding. This committee has the responsibility then to figure out whether or not those public funds were used, and also to see whether or not that audit has started, and if not, why not? And if so, then are there any findings there? And so we certainly have some good questions around that. Like I said, it is this committee's responsibility to take on this study, and so I would ask that we do that, or propose that we do that, before continuing to proceed to clause by clause with Bill C11.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. We do have a speaking list on the amendment. I have Mr. Julian, Mr. Uppal, Mr. Perkins, and Mr. Waugh. So, Mr. Julian, on the amendment, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. I think I don't have the exact wording of the amendment, but wanted to offer a sub-amendment, which would change the word after to before. With that, what I'm attempting to accomplish is that the original essence around starting on Wednesday, June 8th, that is something that we, I think, having heard from the witnesses, we would want to proceed on. And subsequent to that very important study that Ms. Thomas suggests, that we could move immediately to that. But because I don't have a wording of the amendment, I'm in your hands, Mr. Chair, if before, as opposed to after, accomplishes that end.
Thank you, Mr. Julian. We will accept it as permissible. For the benefit of the committee, if it's permissible, I'll have our clerk just read out how the new wording would say with the amendment. So I'll do that. And Ms. Thomas, are you? Yes.
Okay, so the sub-amendment on Ms. Thomas's amendment to Mr. Biddle's motion would read that the committee commence its clause-by-clause study on the Online Streaming Act before the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage completes a study on the alleged involvement of Hockey Canada in sexual assaults committed in 2018, and that the committee invite the Minister of Sport to appear for no less than 1 hour, and that the committee invite representatives of Hockey Canada for no less than 2 hours.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Julian, did you want to speak to this sub-amendment?
Yeah, I'll speak to it briefly because I think we want to proceed to a vote. We've got witnesses here, and I'm actually eager to ask them questions. We've had a lot of filibusters, which is really unfortunate because that has meant often that witnesses have been delayed and we haven't been able to get answers to important questions. But that being said, I think the more rapidly we proceed to clause by clause, which I imagine will take a lot of time. We have a number of amendments we're offering. I know the other parties have as well. We have submitted our amendments, Mr. Chair, last week, and I think the Bloc Québécois also did, and I believe the Liberal Party also did. So the Conservatives seemed reluctant to provide amendments, but as you know, Mr. Chair, amendments can be presented during clause-by-clause studies, so that they can certainly are entitled to do that. But the point is this: we've been hearing from witnesses, despite the filibusters. We've had a vast majority of witnesses saying they support the legislation, but improvements need to be made, and it really is our responsibility as a committee to make those improvements, to put forward those amendments that we now have the opportunity to go through. And the sooner that we tackle the clause by clause, the sooner we tackle the improvements, the sooner we can get to the study that Ms. Thomas suggests, which I don't deny is important as well. So I guess what I'm suggesting, Mr. Chair, is that if there is a real genuine interest in proceeding to the other study, the best way to do that is to proceed to clause by clause, complete the mandated responsibility that we were given by the House of Commons to examine this legislation, provide improvements, and then return it to the House of Commons. The sooner we do that, the sooner we can start the study that Ms. Thomas has mentioned.
Thank you, Mr. Julian. I do have a list going for the sub-amendment, and if I'm accurate, I have Mr. Julian, who just finished, Ms. Thomas, Mr. Perkins, Mr. Uppal, Monsieur Champoux. Sound accurate? No? Oh. We will. Okay, I will.
It's over there on the original motion.
Okay, that's on the original motion. We'll add you to the sub-amendment. Ms. Thomas, the floor is yours on the sub-amendment.
Yes, thank you. So the sub-amendment, I'm actually a little bit surprised that this sub-amendment has been brought forward, because essentially what it does is it says that we're going to move forward with Bill C-11 first, and then eventually we will get to this motion that was unanimously passed in the House of Commons to look at Hockey Canada, because there's no time frame. So if this committee spends the next few weeks looking at C-11, and then the parliamentary secretary makes the decision that actually we're just not going to move, we're not going to have this committee anymore, then it just breaks for the summer.
Point of order,
and then,
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Biddle, on a point of order?
I guess a point of clarification. I would like to know what powers I have to suspend this committee. I didn't know that that existed in the standing orders. I just found that out right now. I don't recall that in the Green Book, but.
Don't think that's a point of order, but I appreciate the comments. Ms. Thomas, you have the floor.
So the Liberals can make the decision that this committee is no longer going to meet, which then puts this motion with regard to Hockey Canada on hold until the fall and perhaps even beyond. So the motion, or sorry, the sub-amendment that has been brought forward by Mr. Julian then, to say that we're going to do clause by clause first, and then we'll do that before, and then after, sometime, it could be down the road by weeks or down the road by months or maybe even longer, sometime in the future, we will eventually get to this unanimous consent motion that's been passed in the House of Commons. I have concerns with that for a few reasons. One, it's actually disgraceful to the victim who has come forward with her story. And it's a disgrace to those members of Parliament, which is all of us, who stood in the House of Commons in support of this motion and taking it seriously. Two, it actually re-victimizes this individual because, again, what Mr. Julian is proposing is that her voice isn't worth hearing now. We'll just hear it eventually. We'll give it attention eventually. We'll look into this eventually. Which I think is very disheartening. In addition to that, we have heard from the Minister of Sport that she was shocked and angry, those are the words she used, to learn about these allegations, and that she herself wished to get to the bottom of it. One of the ways that we can make sure that that happens is by acting on the study that has been called for through this unanimous consent motion. Again, the Minister of Sport, who falls under Heritage Committee, has said that she wants to know whether any public funds were used to cover up this story of gang rape. And she wants an audit of federal funding and how it was used. So we can go with Mr. Julian's motion and do it eventually, someday, down the road. Or we can do the right thing, be vigilant, take this victim seriously, and do the study now. We have an opportunity to communicate clearly to Canadians how we treat victims in this place, how seriously we take their stories, how genuinely we want to get to the bottom of something. I take the Minister of Sport at her word that she does in fact want to know whether or not public funds were used and that she does in fact want an audit with regards to those funds. The way that she can make good on those commitments or those indications or good well wishes is by allowing this study to go forward in a timely fashion.
Point of order.
Mr. Biddle, on a point of order.
Thank you so much. We're well into another Conservative filibuster, and I think there's a number of people on the speaking list. Perhaps we should let the witnesses go.
That would be up to the will of the committee. What's the opinion of the committee? Dismiss the witnesses or keep them? Yeah. Dismiss them? It's not fair. Okay. Mr. Julian, on the same point of order.
Yes, thanks very much, Mr. Chair. There were questions around the $1 billion question that Mr. Waugh asked, and if you could provide those amounts back to the committee, I think that would be very helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Julian. Thank you, Mr. Owen Ripley, Mr. Saba, Ms. Awad. Thank you for your time, and you are dismissed, for lack of a better phrase. Thank you. We will now return to Ms. Thomas. You have the floor.
Thank you. For context, because I want us to understand what we're talking about here, because I believe there might be members actually here at the committee and certainly those that are observing who may not be familiar with what I'm talking about. And so it actually might be worth just taking a step back and providing a little bit of context for the unanimous consent motion that was passed in the House of Commons, and why I believe it is so important to make sure that we get to that sooner rather than later. In other words, push the pause button on C11, take care of this, then we can resume back to clause by clause, rather than Mr. Julian's motion, which is to say we'll get to this unanimous consent motion eventually. And so, for context sake, there's an article that was written on June 3rd, 2022, by for Complex Canada, and it says this. It says that a 24-year-old woman came forward. She says that she was sexually assaulted by 8 Canadian Hockey League players, including some that played for the team, the Canadian team. They went on to secure NHL contracts. And this individual who has come forward, who goes by the initials EM, she doesn't want to be named publicly, has now since dropped the lawsuit against the individuals and against Hockey Canada and against the CHL after reaching a settlement. The article states this. It says, the incident has only recently come to light after TSN reported on documents filed in Ontario Superior Court in London, Ontario this spring that detail accusations laid by a female plaintiff referred to only as EM, who alleges she was repeatedly sexually assaulted in a hotel room while intoxicated after a Hockey Canada Foundation gala and golf event that took place in the Ontario city in June 2018. It goes on to explain that the woman's London-based lawyer told TSN that a settlement was reached and that none of the 8 accused individuals, who are not named in the filings and referred to as John Doe 1 to 8, were ultimately charged. Allegations were also leveled against Hockey Canada for apparently being aware of the alleged incident and choosing not to investigate or punish players. It is unclear if a non-disclosure agreement was part of the deal, but a statement from Hockey Canada spokeswoman Esther Madzia, to TSN states that the faction contacted police immediately upon learning about the alleged incident in 2018. Details of the night in question are disturbing and difficult to read, outlining how the plaintiff was allegedly given drinks by the accused and separated from her friends at a London bar and restaurant before returning to a hotel room. The article goes on to explain what happened in that hotel room. And then it continues. At times, the plaintiff was crying and attempted to leave the room, but was directed, manipulated, and intimidated into remaining, after which she was subjected to further sexual assaults. The lawsuit reads, Hockey Canada is deeply troubled by the very serious allegations of sexual assault regarding members of the 2017-18 National Junior Hockey Team, the statement reads. As soon as Hockey Canada became aware of this matter in 2018, we contacted local police authorities to inform them. The same day, we also retained Mr. Hutchinson LLP, a firm with extensive experience in this area. Heinen Hutchinson LLP, a firm with extensive experience in this area, to undertake a thorough independent internal investigation and make recommendation on areas for improvement, which we have been implementing and will continue to pursue. The person bringing the allegations forward chose not to speak with either police or with Hockey Canada's independent investigator, and also chose not to identify the players involved. This was her right, and we fully respect her wishes. We have settled this matter, and as a part of that settlement, we will not be commenting further. The article goes on to say, but questions remain regarding how the alleged gang rape was dealt with by the national governing body Hockey Canada, both from a public funding perspective and as multiple of the alleged assailants have gone on to play for NHL teams. Quote, I am shocked and angry to read about the allegations made against the players of the Canadian junior hockey team, end quote. Canadian Minister of Sport, Pascal Saint-Onge, told the press in Ottawa. open quote, all Canadians want to know, and me too, is whether any public funds were used to cover up this story of gang rape, end quote. She said, adding that an audit of federal funding is on the way. The NHL responded by promising an investigation of its own, open quote, we will endeavor to determine the underlying facts, and to the extent this may involve players who are now in the NHL, we will determine what action, if any, would be appropriate, end quote. Mr. Chair, I believe that this article, though I left out some of the details because I didn't feel that they would be necessarily appropriate to read into the mic today, but I do believe that this article outlines the important nature of the study that I am requesting to move forward with. And as stated previously, I do believe that time is of the essence. And so for this sub-amendment to be passed, I believe would be inappropriate because it would be to take this victim lightly, to say that this can be pushed into the future to some unknown date, and that we instead would rush through clause by clause on C11.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Next on the list for the sub-amendment is Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the sense of the desire of the sub-amendment to try and balance the need to achieve both focuses, but the committee, I believe the committee mandates are the references from the Minister of both the legislation and this particular sorry and sad situation don't have a date for reporting back, so unless I'm mistaken. So it is the choice of the committee as to which is the priority and what the intent back was. I understand even in the original motion around the number of witnesses, there was no report back date, although the chair in the last meeting hinted at some sort of desire to do that. But this is a serious issue that is urgent, I think, because we're seeing and have seen incidents of cover-up in terms of junior hockey and sexual abuse. We all know about the Sheldon Kennedy case and those issues that we thought had led to change, but have apparently not changed the attitude of a lot of, or some element or amount of junior players. I, have played hockey at competitive levels all my life and understand the locker room sort of mentality that seems to develop. It doesn't excuse anything that has gone on. So 8 players, shockingly, some of whom are in the NHL now, involved in this alleged allegation. There must be obviously a little more to it, or 3.55 million of Hockey Canada dollars wouldn't have been used to try and keep this from going public, I assume, especially when NDAs are signed. The primary purpose we see of NDAs is apparently to keep these types of things from going public. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done that the minister has asked for on this important issue, and I don't think the committee should be restricting its time frame, or the likelihood is, and maybe it's not the parliamentary secretary's power to adjourn this committee early, but it certainly is when the House adjourns, and there's a lot of time that will be required, obviously, for clause by clause of C11, which I don't believe has really a time limit on when it has to be done. It is not a time-sensitive bill. The committee can take as much time as it needs to continue the committee study and the amendments, while this issue obviously is one that is very current and should be considered sensitively and with some transparency, though, when this kind of things happens. We've seen NDAs used to, and some very famous cases in the United States, to try and keep criminal behavior quiet, whether it was Bill Crosby or perhaps even some of the NDAs that former President Trump has used to keep his antics quiet. So I think while we don't know whether the audit has started, there is an accountability for a governance organization that oversees all of our most peak level of amateur hockey to come before Parliament, which does receive public funds in some way, to be held accountable as to why when we thought that some of these issues had been dealt with from a governance and an overall education and management perspective because of the Sheldon Kennedy case, that this kind of incident apparently still happens. So I would ask the committee to consider that there is some urgency to this, reject the sub-amendment on the motion so that we can consider this fairly urgent request and unanimous consent motion from the House to look into this quickly. We can't let the exposure or the chance that this will happen again, and it shouldn't have happened in the first place, and certainly some urgency on this. If the committee were to not be able to complete this study or even look at this issue before the summer because the House chooses to rise early, I think that would leave a lot of young Canadians very exposed to future situations that may or may not occur, but it's too far to go till perhaps next October, if the House rises, before the minister's request on this gets dealt with. So it's a challenging situation, and I would urge the committee to reject this amendment, get back to Ms. Thomas's amendment so that the minister's request to study this difficult situation gets treated with some urgency and sensitivity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. I have Mr. Uppal next on the speaking list.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, I can appreciate what Mr. Julian had said, that, that we address this committee, still C11 first, and then move on to this issue with Hockey Canada. I can maybe appreciate it in the sense of just trying to get one thing done and then we'll go to the next. But I do believe in this case there is definitely a responsibility that we have as members of Parliament to first address these very, very serious allegations with Hockey Canada. Not only because it's, possibly Government of Canada funding may have been used as part of what looks like a cover-up on sexual assault on an individual by hockey players. But also, I would never want, Canadians to think that somehow we put off a possibly looking into a situation where, maybe professional athletes are given the benefit of the doubt or being passed by for scrutiny because we figured that we had more important things to do because this is of utmost importance. I know Ms. Thomas went through some of the details, and I would suggest that after hearing those details, that in no way I would feel comfortable in saying that we do not look into this immediately. I think that would be most important. I do believe that there was no timeline set for C11 to go back to the House. We do have time, and so I believe that as a matter of urgency for our committee, and also just respecting the will of the House of Commons, which unanimously, this is something that does not happen often, where we have a unanimous vote in the House of Commons to address a situation. So I believe that our colleagues, members of Parliament from all sides of the House, are looking to us to address this. I don't think it would be responsible for us to go back to them and say, yeah, but we had other things that we were planning on doing. This is something that is, something that has been handed to us as a committee, and we definitely do have a responsibility to address it, I would say, immediately. And I know, there's going to be a little bit of time that will be needed to decide which witnesses do we want to bring forward. There's going to be legal issues here. We have there's sensitivities in a number of different ways that we would have to address, possibly some things being in camera. So there's a number of things that we have to consider. So I think it would be absolutely important that we move on to this new study. We study it, we do it properly, we do what I would say is our job to address these types of issues, to give Canadians confidence that we have taken this very seriously. And once that is completed, we get back to C11. C11 is not going anywhere. This is something that are changes to the internet. There's different views on it, and we would continue to study that, continue to hear from witnesses, which is also, of course, part of our job. But I think it is of utmost importance that we do address this, especially considering we don't have an actual timeline for either. I will say that even the House of Commons unanimous motion that was provided to this committee did not have a timeline. But I do think with considering the nature of those issues, I think it would be most important. And I believe even if you asked the Minister of Sport, she also would agree that that is absolutely important that we look into the situation. It is very serious, and I would not want to face my constituents and letting them know that we put it off to address something else, and then all of a sudden the House adjourns or something for the summer, and we end up not looking into it. So I think this is very important that we do look into this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Uphull. I have Mr. Champoux.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to see I still have a bit of time left. Mr. Chair, I think it's extremely interesting that we're here debating this motion that was passed unanimously in the House of Commons, all the more because it was a motion that was tabled by the Bloc Québécois. And when we prepared that motion, which we deemed to be extremely essential, we thought it was vital. We debated it and we discussed it amongst ourselves. And we talked about the importance of the study we wanted to undertake. I'm speaking to this because it is a Bloc motion, so I am best placed to tell you about the essence of this motion. And hearing from Hockey Canada and hearing from the Minister of Sport, well, it was clear to us that C11 was still the priority and we had to treat it as an urgent matter. And that after that point, it would be appropriate for us to hear from Hockey Canada and the Minister of Sport. So, Mr. Chair, I need to put that motion back into context. This proposed study is extremely sensitive and of the utmost importance to us, and we think that it deserves the utmost respect in its handling. But in proposing that motion, we had absolutely no intention of putting an end to the work on C11. And I fully support the sub-amendment proposed by my colleague, Mr. Julian. I think that if we work swiftly to move forward, we could even receive Hockey Canada next week and receive the Minister of Sport to talk about this extremely delicate matter. There you have it. let's vote. Thank you very much.
Next I have Kevin Waugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I lived through the Graham James. I knew Theron Fleury, Sheldon Kennedy, Todd Holt. I heard the whispers for 2 years and did nothing. I covered the Western Hockey League for 40 years. Swift Current came to Saskatoon, you'd often hear, Graham James. Graham James. I'm living this again, guys. It's wrecked Theron Fleury's life. It's wrecked Sheldon Kennedy's life. It's wrecked the whole organization of the Swift Current Broncos. And here we are again saying this can wait. It's ridiculous. This needs to be brought forward now. Mr. Westhead from TSN came through with a very, we talk about reporting and investigation. He found this. And then it was buried in every Canadian newspaper in this country. It should have bloody well been on the front page. It was buried in the Toronto Sun, Toronto Star, Globe and Mail. Damn it, I've looked at the 2017-18 roster. There's 8 players involved. Which ones? I've looked at every name on that roster from 2017-18. I'm disgusted with Hockey Canada. God, did they not learn anything from the Graham James incident? Have you ever Googled Hockey Canada 2017-18 gold medal team roster? Have you looked who's involved? Maybe? No, I don't know where he is today. Where's he today? Who's covered that up? Google that roster from 2017-18 gold medal team. And tell me, there's 8 on there. Which 8? I just, when I heard this in the House of Commons, and I'm Mr. Shampoo, to be honest with you, I'm upset at myself for not bringing this out. I lived through the Graham James incident. I've done banquets with Kennedy, Fleury, Holt, Joe Sakic, the whole Swift Current team. And I'm disturbed at myself not bringing this unanimous consent to the House of Commons. Hockey Canada, with the own the podium high performance, gets $7.8 million from the federal government. $7.8 million. Own the podium high performance. They swept this under the rug for 3.5 years. I'm sorry, guys. This has to come now. I agree with the sport minister, St. Onge. When this brought out the day in the House of Commons, and then her comments were appropriate. I don't ever want to see a Graham James in my lifetime again. I think I'm seeing it in front of me with the 2017-18 gold medal Team Canada. We need to bring this right now. We have one team left in the NHL that's Canadian-based, and that's the Edmonton Oilers, and we'll see tonight if they continue. But for Hockey Canada and all other fitness groups, research and media reports have revealed the harassment, the abuse, the discrimination in sport. I mean, we talked about getting involved in sport. Who the hell wants to get involved now with a story like this that's developed? Mr. Chair and clerk and everyone around here, this brings back horrible memories for me. As a broadcaster in my community, I felt it was my job. I heard the whispers of Graham James, and now I'm living this again. And to me, as we have summer camps going on, and the CHL is going to have the Memorial Cup coming up here in a couple of weeks, and it's all going to be good. We're going to have 4 teams compete for the Memorial Cup. The CHL will be excited because we have a national championship where Believe me,
Mr. Waugh,
they shouldn't be excited.
I do apologize. I didn't want to interrupt you.
move for adjournment.
But we do have run to the end of our resources for this meeting, so we are adjourned.